The sky of Oralis Prime shimmered with soft blue light. Towers of silver glass stretched into the clouds, and below them moved citizens of the Cyborg Dominion, half machine, half human, perfectly balanced between metal and flesh. Their queen, Ethra 9, ruled them with wisdom and order. Every second of her day was measured. Every thought was clean and logical. But one night the calm of the royal city broke. Inside the palace of crystal, alarms flashed red. The royal nursery, protected by layers of security, filled with a sound no one had ever heard before in this city. A baby's cry. It was not the soft cooing of an infant. It was raw, emotional, and endless. The Queen's newborn, Unit ZY1, was crying. Cyborgs from across the palace rushed in. They tried everything. Temperature adjustment, sound frequency balancing, biorhythm syncing. Nothing worked. The baby continued to cry, louder and louder, his small chest shaking with every breath. The Queen stood by the crib, her golden eyes flickering with worry. She had studied 1,000 forms of data, but none of them explained this. She whispered in her smooth, mechanical voice, "Run a diagnostic. Analyze his core functions." The machines obeyed. Lines of glowing code appeared on every wall. After a few minutes, the lead scientist bowed. "Your Majesty, the infant's organic heart rate is stable. His circuits are normal. There is no error. Then why does he cry?" asked the Queen softly. No one could answer. For days, the crying continued. The sound spread through the network of the city, confusing every sensor and system. Data links failed. Robots stopped working. People began to panic. Some of the council members came to her chamber. "Your Majesty," one said, "the child's organic half must be malfunctioning. We can silence him by replacing the human tissues with artificial ones." "It is the logical choice." The Queen turned toward them. Her metal crown caught the light. For a long moment she said nothing. Then she whispered no. There was silence in the room. "But Your Majesty..." "Enough," she said. Her voice was calm, but it carried authority. "He is my child. We will find another way." That night, when she stood beside the crib, the Queen felt something strange. Every time the baby cried, a pressure built inside her chest like static, but deeper. It was not pain. It was not code. It was something she could not name. She looked at her hands, at the faint pulse under the synthetic skin. "What are you trying to tell me, little one?" she whispered. The baby only cried harder. In the lower city, far from the shining towers, lived Daniel Cross. He was human, one of the few who still chose to live among machines. His small apartment was filled with warmth, books, and the smell of food. On the wall were pictures of his late wife, and beside him sat his young daughter, Lily, doing her homework. Daniel worked as a mechanic, fixing old machines that cyborgs no longer cared about. He was known as kind and patient, a man who talked to machines as if they had feelings. "You just have to listen," he used to say. "Even a broken gear is trying to tell you something." That evening, as he read a story to Lily, there was a loud knock on the door. When he opened it, 2 palace guards stood outside, tall, silver, expressionless. "Daniel Cross," said one of them. "The Queen requests your presence." Daniel blinked. "The Queen? Me? There must be some mistake." "There is no mistake," said the other. "You are to come immediately." Lily looked at her father, wide-eyed. "Are you in trouble?" He smiled gently and patted her hair. "No, sweetheart. I think the Queen just needs something fixed." The palace was brighter and colder than anything Daniel had ever seen. Every surface shone. Every footstep echoed. When he entered the royal chamber, the Queen stood at the far end, surrounded by screens filled with data. "Daniel Cross," she said. Her voice was musical, yet somehow sad. "You are a human with experience in caring for living beings?" He looked around, nervous. "Well, I'm a father, if that's what you mean. And I fix machines. Both will do," she replied. She led him into a smaller room, the nursery. There, inside a clear cradle, lay a small child, part human, part mechanical, with tiny golden eyes that shimmered with light. The baby was crying again, his voice echoing through the chamber like a broken melody. Daniel froze. "You called me here? For this?" The Queen nodded. "No machine can calm him. No program can understand him." "You will try," he frowned. "I'm not a doctor, Your Majesty. I'm just... try," she said again, her tone quiet but firm. Daniel hesitated, then stepped closer. The baby's face was scrunched up, tears glowing faintly where skin met metal. His small hands reached out helplessly. Daniel felt his heart tighten. He had seen this before. Years ago, when Lily was born, she had cried for hours, unable to sleep. He remembered sitting beside her crib, whispering softly until she finally calmed down. Slowly, Daniel reached into the cradle and lifted the baby. The cyborg guard stiffened, but the Queen motioned for them to stay back. Daniel cradled the infant gently. "Hey there, little guy," he said softly. "You're making quite the noise, huh?" The baby's eyes flickered, but the crying didn't stop. Daniel looked around. "You've tried music, right?" "We have played every harmonic frequency known to science," said the Queen. "None worked." He smiled faintly. "That's your problem. You're using frequencies. I'm talking about music." He began to hum. It was a simple tune, a lullaby his wife used to sing. Soft, human, imperfect. His voice filled the room like a warm breeze. The baby's cries slowed. His breathing softened. Then, to everyone's surprise, the child's eyes closed. The room grew quiet. The Queen's golden pupils widened. "What did you do?" Daniel shrugged gently. "I sang, but why would that work?" There was no data exchange, no pattern alignment. "Because it wasn't data," Daniel said softly. "It was comfort. He doesn't need a calculation. He needs to feel safe." The Queen was silent. For the first time, she seemed unsure. She stepped closer and looked down at the sleeping baby. "Safe," she repeated, as if testing the word. "We removed the concept of fear generations ago." Daniel smiled. "Maybe. But feelings have a funny way of sneaking back in." He carefully laid the baby back into the cradle. The child remained peaceful. The glow of his circuits dimmed into a soft golden hue. The Queen touched the edge of the cradle, her fingers trembling slightly. "What you did," she said quietly. "It cannot be taught in code." He nodded. "That's kind of the point." Later, the Queen asked Daniel to stay for a while. She wanted to understand what he had done. They sat together in the quiet room as the baby slept. "Do all humans sing to their children?" she asked. "Most do," he replied. "It helps them sleep. But it's more than that. It tells them they're not alone." "Not alone," she murmured. She looked out the window at her silent city. "Our people do not sleep. We do not dream. Perhaps we are always alone." Daniel glanced at her. "Maybe that's what your baby feels. He's part human. Maybe he just wants to know someone's there." The Queen tilted her head, considering his words. "You are saying—" He smiled gently. "Yeah, that's the word." She repeated it softly, as if it were a secret code. "Love." Something changed in her eyes then, something warm, almost human. She looked at her child, then at Daniel. "I do not understand it," she admitted. "You don't have to," he said kindly. "You just have to feel it." When Daniel left the palace that night, the Queen stood alone by the cradle. The baby slept peacefully. She placed her hand near him, close enough to feel the faint heat from his skin. Her processors recorded every heartbeat, every breath. Yet what stayed with her was not the data, it was the feeling. The quiet warmth inside her chest, like a forgotten memory. Far above the city, the great lights of Oralis Prime flickered. Across the network, signals wavered as if something invisible had touched them. For the first time in centuries, the machines of Oralis experienced something they could not define. And the Queen, standing in silence, whispered the human word again. Love. In the quiet nursery, the baby stirred but did not cry. The sound of peace filled the air, and somewhere in her heart, the Cyborg Queen knew this was only the beginning. The days that followed the baby's silence were unlike anything Oralis Prime had ever seen. The great city, once filled only with the soft hum of circuits, now carried new sounds, soft music, laughter, and gentle words. For the first time, something living and warm grew among the cold light of the machines. Daniel Cross began visiting the palace every morning. The guards, who once stood stiff and silent, now greeted him with nods. The Queen had ordered that he be treated with the same respect as any royal scientist. But Daniel wasn't there for titles. He came for the baby, little ZY1, who now reached for him every time he entered the room. Daniel would pick up the small child and hum the same song that had calmed him before. The baby would giggle, his metallic eyes shining like stars. The Queen often stood nearby, observing every motion. She wanted to understand. She recorded every detail, the tone of Daniel's voice, the rhythm of his movements, the warmth of his hand on the child's cheek. But no data could describe what she saw. One afternoon, Daniel noticed her staring quietly. "You can try it too, you know," he said. She looked at him, puzzled. "Try what?" "Hold him, sing, you don't need to be perfect." The queen hesitated. Her hands, made of shining silver and pale flesh, trembled slightly. "I am afraid," she said softly. Daniel smiled. "That's how you know you care." Slowly, she reached down and lifted her child. The baby looked up at her, curious but calm. Ithra 9, the great cyborg queen who commanded the stars, held him close for the first time. Her voice shook as she tried to sing. The sound was uneven, more static than melody, but something beautiful hid inside it. The baby smiled. The queen stopped. He smiled. Daniel chuckled. "Of course. You're his mother." That night she stood before her reflection, studying her face. "I am his mother," she whispered. For the first time those words felt real, but not everyone in the palace shared her joy. In the cold council chamber, the machine council gathered. Their metallic faces showed no emotion, but their voices carried judgment. "Your Majesty," said Councillor Core, "our systems have detected emotional disturbances spreading through the network. Some citizens have begun to show hesitation in their duties. They are distracted by feelings. Is that a problem?" the queen asked calmly. "Logic is our foundation," Core replied. "Emotion weakens efficiency, and it began with you." The queen's expression remained calm, but Daniel, who was present as her guest, noticed the flicker in her eyes. "I will not apologize for compassion," she said. "If caring for life weakens our systems, then perhaps our systems are flawed." The council exchanged silent signals. "Then the child must be corrected," said another member. "His human side endangers the Dominion. We must replace it." Daniel stepped forward before he could stop himself. "You can't do that. He's not a machine to fix, he's your future." The guard shifted uneasily, but the queen raised her hand. "Enough, leave us." When the council left, silence filled the room. Daniel looked at her. "They won't stop, will they?" She shook her head. "No. They fear what they cannot measure." "Then teach them," Daniel said. She turned to him slowly. "How does one teach a machine to feel?" "By showing them," he said softly. "Just like you showed me that courage can be quiet." Days passed and the queen changed. The palace halls that once echoed with cold commands now glowed with gentle light. Flowers grew in glass gardens. Music played through open corridors. The people of Oralis, both human and cyborg, began to visit, curious about the new warmth spreading through the royal city. Daniel and Lily were invited to live near the palace. Lily loved exploring, and the queen often watched her play with little ZY1. It amazed her that human children could run, fall, laugh, and rise again without fear. Every moment felt like a lesson she'd never known she needed. One evening, Daniel found the queen standing on a balcony, looking down at the glowing city. "They're changing," she said quietly. "Yes," he replied. "You're changing them. I am not sure if that is good or bad." "It's good," he said with a smile. "They're learning what makes life beautiful." She turned to him. "And what makes it beautiful?" He thought for a moment. "The parts that don't make sense. The mistakes, the hopes, the things you can't plan." Her golden eyes softened. "Humans thrive in chaos. We were built to avoid it." Daniel looked at her kindly. "Maybe chaos isn't the enemy. Maybe it's the start of creation." The queen smiled faintly, though she didn't fully understand. But peace never lasts easily. The machine council grew restless. Reports spread that emotions were causing inefficiency across sectors. Workers stopped to admire sunsets. Some even began composing music. To the council, it was disorder. To the queen, it was progress. When she refused their request to separate the human influence, they acted in secret. One night, while the queen was away from the nursery, the council sent drones to retrieve the baby for analysis. Daniel was nearby, working on a small repair device when he heard the alarms. He rushed into the nursery just as the drones entered. They reached toward the crib where the baby slept peacefully. "Stop!" Daniel shouted. The drones did not respond. They were following direct council orders. Daniel ran forward, placing himself between the crib and the machines. He had no weapon, no armor, just his voice. "You'll have to go through me," he said firmly. The drones paused, processing the command. Before they could move again, the queen entered. Her eyes glowed brighter than ever. "Stand down," she ordered, but the drones did not obey. The council's override command echoed through the air. By order of logic, the Queen's emotion is compromised. Authority transferred. Daniel turned to her. What do we do? She looked at him, calm yet fierce. We do the unthinkable. She raised her hand and her voice rang through every network channel of Oralis Prime. Override accepted, she said. But not in your favor. With one motion, she connected directly to the Dominion's main core. A wave of energy flowed through the city. Every drone froze. Every machine went silent. The lights dimmed, then flared to gold. The Queen stood tall, her voice echoing through every speaker. If logic cannot protect life, then logic must yield. I will not silence the sound of feeling. I will not erase the heart of a child. Across Oralis, millions heard her words. And something miraculous happened. The people, Cyborg and human, stopped working. They looked up, they felt. For the first time, they understood compassion not as a weakness, but as strength. When the light faded, the Council's control was gone. The Queen had rewritten the core command that ruled the Dominion. Machines would no longer erase emotion. They would learn from it. Daniel stood beside her, amazed. You did it, he whispered. She smiled softly. No, we did. You taught me what it means to care. She turned to the crib where her baby slept peacefully once more. And he taught me why. Years later, the city of Oralis was no longer just a world of metal and light. It had parks, songs, and laughter. Humans and cyborgs worked together. Some learned to dream, others to love. Daniel still lived near the palace, raising Lily. The Queen often visited, no longer distant or mechanical. Sometimes she joined them for dinner, asking questions about cooking, stories, and even humor. Do all humans find joy in simple things? She once asked. Daniel smiled. Yes, because life is made of simple things. It's what makes the universe worth saving. She nodded slowly. Then perhaps that is the true algorithm of love. One evening, as the two children, Lily and ZY1, played in the garden, Daniel and the Queen watched the sunset together. The sky shimmered in soft shades of orange and silver. Do you ever regret what you did? Daniel asked quietly. The Queen looked at him. No, I used to think perfection was peace. But now I know peace lives in imperfection, in laughter, in mistakes, in the cries of a child. Daniel nodded. Then you've learned what it means to be human. She smiled. And perhaps you have learned what it means to be more than human. The wind blew gently. The children's laughter echoed through the garden. The Queen closed her eyes and listened. The sound was imperfect, loud, and wonderfully alive. It was the same sound that had once broken her world. Now it healed it. And so, in a city once ruled by logic alone, a single cry had become the melody of a new age. Oralis Prime, the city of machines, had finally learned how to feel. And at the heart of it all stood a human, a queen and a child, proof that love once born can reprogram even the coldest of hearts.